This is the Forbidden Gnosticism, the hidden doctrine of divine remembrance. It reveals that the true law of attraction is not about desire, but awareness, the awakening to your power as the dreamer of your world. You were never cut off from the source. You have only forgotten your own light. Now, it is time to remember. The Forbidden Gnosticism Introduction. In the veiled corridors of ancient time, whispers moved among the initiated, whispers of a truth so luminous it could dissolve the walls of illusion itself. Guarded by mystics and hidden beneath symbols, this wisdom spoke not of gods beyond reach, but of the divine spark within you, the forgotten essence of your being. The law of attraction, stripped of its worldly disguise, reveals itself here as a sacred remembrance, the awakening of the dreamer behind the dream. Through lifetimes uncounted, you have wandered in the shadow of separation, believing yourself adrift from the source that gave you breath. Yet you were never lost. Like the sun reflected in countless waves, your light has merely been refracted by the waters of perception. Every thought you think, every emotion you cradle, sends ripples through the fabric of creation, for you are not within the universe. The universe is within you. The mysteries unveiled in these chapters do not teach you what to seek, but how to remember what you already are. Consciousness is the eternal foundation, your outer world, a flawless mirror of your inner state. The power you chase through the external world has always waited patiently in the stillness of your awareness, untouched, undiminished, divine. This wisdom was never forbidden. It was only hidden from those unready to bear its light. For with great remembrance comes great responsibility, to recognize yourself as both artist and canvas, both dreamer and dream. Such knowledge is not a burden, but a liberation, a return to the infinite within. As you walk through these teachings, you will meet reflections of your own sacred essence disguised as parables and echoes of eternity. Let these truths not rest upon your tongue, but blossom within your silence. Enlightenment is not the gaining of new knowledge. It is the shedding of forgetting. And so, the deepest revelation awaits. You are not becoming. You are remembering. You are not reaching. You are awakening to what has always been. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Part 1. The Awakening of Hidden Light. Chapter 1. The Mirror of Desire. In a quaint flower shop at the edge of town, Ruby arranged blossoms with trembling hands, her loneliness echoing in the empty space around her. Each morning, she watched couples select flowers for their beloved, her heart aching for such tenderness. Until one dawn, as she prepared her daily display, something extraordinary occurred. In the shop window's reflection, she noticed her mirror image smile before her own lips moved. This moment awakened something ancient within her soul. The universe had placed before her the most sacred of teachings. Her outer world merely reflected her inner state of being. Each pang of loneliness, each moment of perceived rejection, these were but echoes of her own resistance to self-love. The truth unfolds like petals in the morning sun. What we resist in life persists until we embrace it with gratitude. Your soul projects your reality as a perfect mirror, reflecting back every thought, belief, and emotion you hold within. When you judge yourself unworthy of love, the universe cannot help but manifest experiences that confirm this belief. When Sophia, a rival florist, opened her shop across the street, Ruby's initial response was fear and judgment. But remembering the mirror's lesson, she chose differently. Instead of resistance, she offered welcome. In place of competition, she extended compassion. To her amazement, both shops flourished, attracting twice the customers to their street. In her garden one evening, Ruby encountered her final lesson through a stubborn rose that refused to bloom. For days, she had tried every technique to coax it open, until exhaustion led to surrender. In that moment of letting go, the bud slowly unfurled its petals, teaching her that some of life's most beautiful gifts arrive not through force, but through acceptance. The ancient practice of mirror wisdom. As twilight embraces the day, find a quiet moment for yourself. Place your hand upon your heart, feeling its steady rhythm. Whisper 3 truths you have known since the beginning of time but have temporarily forgotten. Perhaps, I am complete. Love flows through me, or I am the source of my joy. Let each truth settle into your being until, like Ruby's reflection, you feel your soul smile back at you through the mirror of life. Chapter 2. The Gate Within the Gate. Long before written history, wise ones whispered of a gateway that opened into the heart of creation itself. You too have heard these whispers, though perhaps you've forgotten when. They echo in your dreams, in moments of perfect stillness, in the spaces between your thoughts. In a distant valley lived Harold, whose fingers danced across strings and keys, creating melodies that stirred souls. Yet, despite his gift, an emptiness dwelled within him. He had heard tales of a sacred gate, one that opened only for those whose hearts beat in rhythm with the universe itself. And so he embarked on a journey that would span decades, crossing continents and climbing mountains, seeking this mythical portal. He studied with masters in remote temples, learned ancient ceremonies in forgotten caves, and collected wisdom from every corner of the earth. But the gate remained elusive, like morning mist dissolving in sunlight. One evening, as Harold sat with his beloved instrument, something shifted. Between 2 notes of a simple scale, he felt, rather than heard, a vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. In that moment, he understood. The sacred gate had never been a physical doorway, but the infinite space between moments, the silence from which all sound emerges. This revelation transformed his music. No longer did he simply play notes. He became the instrument through which harmony expressed itself. His performances changed from demonstrations of skill to ceremonies of silence, each note rising from stillness like lotus flowers from still waters. As your awareness opens to this truth, witness the second testament of this teaching. A hummingbird appeared in Harold's garden, suspended in midair. Unlike its kin who darted frantically between flowers, this one remained perfectly still, drinking from nectar invisible to human eyes. Those who saw it spoke of a bird that had mastered the art of receiving without chasing, of finding abundance in apparent emptiness. The hummingbird teaches what Harold discovered. Stillness is not the absence of movement, but the source of all authentic action. When you cease the endless pursuit of becoming, you discover you have always been complete. The gate you seek opens when you stop searching and start being. the ancient practice. As the sun rises or sets, find a quiet space. For a few precious breaths, rest your awareness in the pauses between your thoughts. Listen deeply to the silence that precedes every sound. It is the original gatekeeper, the eternal guardian of mysteries. In this space between spaces, you will find what Harold discovered. The sacred gate has always been within you, waiting in the stillness of your own heart. Chapter 3. The Feather and the Stone. In a village among ancient hills lived a woman named Daisy, whose shoulders bore the invisible weight of 1,000 regrets. Each morning, she would wake feeling as though stones had been sewn into the fabric of her soul, making even the simplest movements feel like wading through deep water. One autumn dawn, as she sat beneath an aging oak tree, a single white feather drifted down before her eyes. It swayed left, then right, dancing with currents of air she couldn't see. Though the feather was light enough to be carried by a breath, it had traveled great distances, endured storms, and still remained whole. In that moment, something within her stirred. The universe speaks through what appears before you, and in its infinite wisdom, it reveals that the lightest things often carry the greatest truths. Your regrets feel heavy because you believe they must be. Yet, like the feather, you can learn to float above them, allowing the winds of change to carry you forward. When carrying burdens becomes your familiar state, you forget that liberation is your natural condition. The weight you feel is not the weight of your past. It is the weight of resisting what has already flowed downstream in the river of time. Near the edge of the village lived an old mason named Thomas, whose hands had shaped stone for over 50 years. One day, Daisy watched him work, expecting to see him strike the stone with force. Instead, his movements were gentle, almost musical. "Stone," he told her, "is not as rigid as we imagine. It remembers being liquid once, deep in the earth's heart. When we approach it with patience, it remembers its ability to flow." Day after day, Daisy watched Thomas transform hard rock into flowing shapes, not through force, but through understanding. She began to see how her heart, like stone, had hardened around old wounds, and like the mason's gentle touch, forgiveness could soften what seemed permanent. Your heart knows this truth. Forgiveness is not about erasing the past. It is about releasing the energy once locked in resistance. When you cease to fight what was, you free the life force once spent on regret. This energy becomes available for creation, for joy, for the present moment that always awaits your return. The ancient practice of feather breath. Each morning, breathe deeply and imagine each inhale as a feather lifting unspoken guilt. Exhale until your chest feels bright as sky. Chapter 4. The Lantern Beneath the Well. In the depths of an ancient village, a wooden well stood sentinel beneath stars that had witnessed countless seekers before you. This well, like the mysteries within your own heart, held secrets in its shadowed waters, truths that only reveal themselves to those brave enough to look deeply. A woman named Eleanor approached this well each evening, carrying a lantern whose light seemed too feeble against the vastness of her loneliness. Night after night, she lowered her lantern into the darkness, watching as the flame descended into the depths. What she discovered there would change forever how you understand the nature of light and shadow. As the lantern descended, something extraordinary occurred. The deeper it went, the brighter its reflection grew in the still waters below. The darkness, rather than extinguishing the light, amplified it, creating a mirror of brilliance that illuminated the entire shaft. Eleanor stood transfixed, recognizing a truth that the ages have whispered. Light reveals its greatest power when embraced by shadow. This revelation speaks to the fundamental nature of your own inner landscape. When you resist the shadows within, your fears, doubts, and perceived inadequacies, you create a barrier that blocks your natural radiance. But when you lower your light into these depths with gentle acceptance, the darkness itself becomes a mirror, reflecting your brilliance back to you with unexpected intensity. Consider how often you turn away from parts of yourself that seem too dark to face. Yet these very aspects, when approached with courage and compassion, become the fertile soil from which your greatest wisdom grows. The shadow is not your enemy. It is the canvas upon which your light paints its most beautiful expressions. A moth appeared, drawn to Eleanor's lantern, circling in an eternal dance between light and shadow. She watched as it moved through both realms with equal grace, neither clinging to the light nor fearing the dark. The moth understood what many souls forget, that shadow is not the opposite of light, but its dancing partner in the cosmic ballet of existence. In this sacred dance, the moth revealed another layer of truth. Your journey toward enlightenment requires not the elimination of shadow, but its integration. Every fear you face becomes a stepping stone, every doubt transformed into a question that leads you deeper into understanding. The moth's wisdom teaches that shadow is not an obstacle to be overcome, but a pathway to be traversed. Each time you embrace what you once feared to face, you discover new dimensions of your own radiance. The very darkness you avoided becomes the means by which your light grows stronger. As these ancient truths settle into your consciousness, remember Eleanor's discovery at the well. Your light shines brightest, not in the absence of darkness, but in its embracing presence. Every shadow in your life offers an invitation to shine more brilliantly, to know yourself more deeply. Sacred practice. Tonight, find a quiet moment to sit with one fear that dwells in your heart. Speak its name softly into the darkness, not as an enemy to be vanquished, but as a part of yourself seeking recognition. Notice how each truth, when spoken without judgment, creates space for your light to expand. Let the warmth of your awareness transform what was once feared into what now illuminates your path. Chapter 5. Threads of the Invisible Loom. Along a winding path through life's labyrinth walks a weaver named Walter, his hands calloused from years of dedicated work at the town's textile mill. For 20 years his fingers danced with threads, transforming raw fiber into intricate tapestries that adorned homes across the land. Until one morning, when the mill's doors closed forever, leaving Walter standing before an empty loom. In those first hollow days, bitterness wrapped around his heart like tangled yarn. The universe, he believed, had abandoned him to unravel alone. Yet within this unwanted dismantling, an ancient wisdom began to whisper. Just as a masterful weaver must first undo old patterns to create a new, life sometimes loosens the tight weave of our existence. This unraveling, though it appears as loss, carries within it the seeds of fresh creation. The universe works not through continuous building, but through cycles of release and renewal. When you resist the natural undoing of what was, you create knots in the flow of divine timing. Your grip on the familiar pattern becomes the very obstacle to the masterpiece waiting to emerge. Trust dwells not in knowing the final design, but in surrendering to the wisdom of the great weaver. A spider appeared one dawn as Walter sat among his broken dreams. Between two legs of his weathered chair, she began to spin. Thread by gossamer thread, she wove beauty where human eyes saw only ruin. Each morning, dew transformed her web into a constellation of light, teaching Walter that grace adorns even the spaces we think broken. As days passed, Walter noticed how life continued to weave, even when his hands lay still. Opportunities appeared like morning dew on a spider's web, subtle, unexpected, perfect. A neighbor needed help repairing sails. A traveling merchant sought someone to mend fine garments. Gradually, Walter's private practice grew into an artisan's studio, more fulfilling than his years at the mill. What appeared as unraveling was actually life rethreading itself into a grander design. Through this, you learn the deepest truth. Nothing falls apart without something greater being woven in its place. Ancient practice. As twilight draws its purple threads across the sky, find solitude in your sacred space. Take 3 deep breaths, allowing each exhale to loosen the tight weave of your expectations. Now, speak aloud the moments when apparent ruin transformed into blessing. Let each memory shine like dewdrops on life's web. Continue until you feel the invisible loom of the universe repairing all you have surrendered. Trust that in the gentle darkness, new patterns are already forming. Chapter 6. The Breath That Builds Worlds. In the heart of an ancient town where cobblestone streets whispered tales of time lived May, whose paintings once captured the essence of souls. Her brush had danced across countless canvases, bringing forth worlds of wonder and light. But as seasons turned, her studio grew silent, each blank canvas a mirror reflecting only emptiness. The colors that once flowed through her veins now felt distant, like stars too far to touch. She sought inspiration in galleries, in nature, in the faces of strangers, yet her brush remained still, weighted by expectation. One misty morning, as May sat before yet another empty canvas, an old woman appeared at her door. Without a word, she placed a single candle on May's workbench and gestured for her to watch. The flame danced erratically until the old woman began to breathe, slow, measured breaths that seemed to emerge from the earth itself. With each breath, the flame steadied, growing taller, brighter, more purposeful. Here lies the first key to creation. Intention begins not in action, but in breath. The universe itself breathes through you, carrying within each inhale the seeds of all possibility. Your breath is the bridge between the seen and unseen realms, the sacred current that aligns your energy with divine purpose. When May learned to breathe with conscious awareness before touching brush to canvas, she discovered that creativity flows not from effort, but from alignment. Each breath became a prayer, a declaration of unity with the source of all creation. Her paintings transformed from mere images to portals of light, each stroke carrying the signature of cosmic intention. As she worked, she noticed how reality itself seemed to bend toward her clarity. The colors she imagined would appear in unexpected places, in a stranger's scarf, in a sudden rainbow, in the iridescent wings of a passing bird. The universe responded to her inner harmony with outer synchronicity. The old woman returned weeks later, this time to watch May paint. The candle's flame now moved in perfect sync with May's breath, a dance of creator and creation united in purpose. "You see," the woman finally spoke, "the breath is both the artist and the art. When you breathe with love, the world cannot help but paint itself anew. Through breath, you enter the timeless space where all creation begins. Each inhale draws in divine possibility. Each exhale releases it into form. Your conscious breath carries the power to transform not just your art, but the very fabric of your reality." Sacred practice. As dawn breaks, find a quiet moment for 3 deliberate breaths of gratitude. Let each inhale gather the colors of possibility, and each exhale paint your world anew. In this simple ritual, you align with the creative force that flows through all existence. Chapter 7. The Keeper of Quiet Storms. In the heart of every storm lies a sacred teaching, waiting to wash clean the dust of resistance. Along a winding path through life's garden, you discover a truth as old as the first raindrop. Your tears are not weakness, but wisdom finding its way home. Like Clara, you may have built walls against the tides of feeling, believing strength meant standing unmoved against emotion's surge. Yet nature whispers otherwise through every passing cloud. When Clara first felt the storm approach, she rushed to shield herself from its touch, as you too might guard against the rising waters of your heart. But in that moment, thunder spoke an ancient truth. That which we resist only gains power over us. The great law reveals itself in the perfect mirror of sky and soul. Emotions, like rain clouds, gather not to harm, but to heal. Your feelings are messengers carrying seeds of transformation, each tear a droplet of divine alchemy turning pain into purpose, fear into freedom. Watch how the earth receives the rain without judgment, letting each drop sink deep into its being. So too must you open to the waters of your own heart. When Clara finally stood beneath the storm, face upturned to meet its blessing, she understood what sages have taught through ages. Renewal requires release. Your resistance to emotion stems from an ancient misunderstanding. You were taught that certain feelings were forbidden, that storms must be controlled. But in nature's wisdom, every storm carries its own completion. Peace is not found in endless sunshine, but in the perfect cycle of release and renewal. In the second teaching, Clara observed how puddles left by the storm became mirrors for the emerging sun. Each pool of water that had moments before fallen as tears now reflected pure light. This is the mystery at the heart of emotional alchemy. What begins in turbulence ends in tranquility, if only we trust the process. Remember, your emotions are not your enemy. They are the rain that cleanses, the waters that nourish the garden of your becoming. When you feel the pressure building within, when the clouds of feeling gather in your heart, resist not their purpose. Ancient practice. When emotion swells within your being, whisper these sacred words. Let it rain clean. Feel each tear, each release, as nature's own renewal. Like the earth after storm, you too shall emerge refreshed, your spirit bathed in the light of new understanding. Chapter 8. The Whispered Compass. In the quiet hours before dawn, a merchant named George stood at the crossroads of an ancient trade route. Though maps marked clear paths in every direction, his heart trembled with uncertainty. For years he had followed the well-worn tracks of others' expectations, yet something within him yearned for a different path. The universe speaks not in thunderous proclamation, but in gentle nudges, a truth as old as time itself. When George finally stilled his racing thoughts, he noticed how his breath naturally drew him toward the eastern path, though logic favored the western road. This subtle pull, lighter than a feather yet stronger than doubt, became his first lesson in the language of soul guidance. The inner voice of wisdom does not shout, it whispers. Like ripples on still water, its message spreads in circles of knowing that bypass the mind's need for certainty. George discovered that his greatest decisions came not from careful calculation, but from moments when he allowed himself to feel rather than think. One morning, while watching migrating birds cross the dawn sky, George witnessed how a single bird adjusted its wing by the slightest degree, altering its entire trajectory. In that moment, he understood. Guidance flows through the smallest sensations, the gentlest tugs of intuition. This sacred law reveals itself. Your higher self communicates through the language of subtle knowing. Each moment carries a thread of divine direction, woven into the fabric of your experience. When George learned to trust these quiet promptings, his path unfolded with an ease that planning could never achieve. The birds became his teachers. Just as they respond to invisible currents of air, your spirit responds to currents of inner wisdom. The difference between struggle and flow often lies in this simple truth. The answer you seek already moves within you, waiting only for your recognition. Through trust in these subtle signals, George found his way not by forcing decisions, but by allowing them to emerge naturally. His business flourished not through aggressive strategy, but through following the gentle pull of aligned opportunities. Each choice became a dance with destiny rather than a battle with doubt. A second story speaks of a desert wanderer who survived by following not the stars, but the soft whisper of wind against his skin. This whisper, barely perceptible, led him to hidden oases that no map had marked. Like George, he learned that the surest guidance often comes through the quietest channels. The essence of this teaching lies in surrendering to your inner compass. The universe guides not through dramatic signs, but through subtle inclinations. A warmth in your heart when you're on the right path, a gentle resistance when you're not. Ancient practice. Tonight, recall one moment you ignored your inner whisper. Bless it and invite your compass home. Chapter 9. The Salt of Remembering. Long ago, a woman named Lydia sat in stillness, her meditation interrupted by an unexpected taste of salt upon her lips. As tears traced silent paths down her cheeks, a wisdom older than time itself awakened within her heart. In that sacred moment, an ancient truth unveiled itself. Your emotions, each one a divine messenger, carry teachings as vast as the ocean itself. When you resist any feeling, believing some to be worthy while rejecting others, you fragment the wholeness of your being. Just as the sea embraces both gentle streams and turbulent rivers, your consciousness must welcome every shade of feeling that flows into its depths. The universe speaks through the language of sensation. Each tear that falls carries within it both the bitter and the sweet, for they are inseparable aspects of the same truth. Think of how salt preserves what would otherwise decay. Your sadness holds within it the very essence of preservation, keeping your joy pure and untainted by denial. Those who walk the path of awakening often mistakenly believe they must transcend their emotions, rising above the waters of feeling into some rarefied air of pure consciousness. Yet the deepest wisdom lies not in escape, but in embrace. When you allow yourself to taste your tears, to truly savor the salt of your experience, you discover that every emotion adds flavor to the feast of existence. By the shore of a vast ocean, Lydia watched as muddy rivers emptied their contents into the sea. The waters did not recoil from the sediment. They welcomed it, transformed it, integrated it into their endless dance. In this, she recognized nature's greatest teaching. Acceptance is the alchemy that transmutes all experiences into wisdom. The sea never says to the river, "Your waters are too murky." It never rejects the storms that churn its surface or the debris carried on its tides. In its infinite wisdom, it knows that all things return to clarity in the fullness of time. So too must you embrace the full spectrum of your emotional life, knowing that each feeling, whether bitter or sweet, serves to preserve the wholeness of your experience. Practice. Touch your tongue gently and whisper gratitude for every flavor your life has given. Let each taste, the sweet of joy, the salt of tears, the bitter of loss, the sharp tang of triumph, remind you that you are as vast as the ocean itself, capable of containing all without being diminished by any. Chapter 10. The Hidden Door in Ordinary Days. In a mountain village among ancient peaks, there lived a man named Frank, who spent his days pursuing visions of enlightenment. He traveled to distant temples, studied with renowned masters, and practiced elaborate rituals, all while overlooking the quiet miracles unfolding in his everyday life. Each morning, steam would rise from his coffee cup like incense, forming delicate patterns that dissolved into the air. Yet Frank never noticed this dance of elements, his mind fixed on grander spiritual pursuits. He rushed through his morning routine, believing enlightenment lay in extraordinary experiences rather than ordinary moments. Within you dwells the same yearning that drove Frank's endless quest. The universe speaks not only through thunder but through whispers, not only through visions, but through the rhythm of your own breath. The greatest mysteries often hide in plain sight, cloaked in the familiar garments of daily life. For years, Frank sought awakening in complexity until exhaustion forced him to pause. One morning, instead of racing through his routine, he simply sat. In that moment of surrender, he became aware of his own heartbeat, a steady drum that had accompanied him since birth. This simplest of sounds opened a doorway within him, revealing what countless spiritual quests had failed to show. The truth reveals itself. Enlightenment resides not in the extraordinary, but in bringing extraordinary awareness to the ordinary. When you consecrate simple acts with attention, they transform into sacred ritual. The steam rising from your morning drink becomes holy incense. The sound of water running becomes a sacred hymn. Your footsteps become a pilgrimage. This teaching runs counter to the mind's desire for spectacle. Yet the sages of old knew that divine presence saturates every moment, waiting only for your recognition. Like a lover who has always stood beside you, the sacred reveals itself when you finally turn your gaze toward it. A merchant visited Frank's village seeking wisdom. He found Frank sitting quietly, watching leaves fall. "Where is the great mystic who once traveled far and wide?" the merchant asked. Frank smiled and poured tea, its steam rising like prayers. "He discovered that the farthest journey was the path from his head to his heart," Frank replied, "and the greatest miracle was simply being present to witness this moment." The merchant waited for more, but Frank had already shared the essence of his realization. In the silence that followed, the merchant began to understand. The path to enlightenment isn't found in perpetual seeking, but in the grace of recognition. Let this wisdom settle into your being. The extraordinary hides within the ordinary, waiting for your attention to transform it. Each repetitive act contains a door to the infinite. Each routine moment holds the potential for revelation. Sacred practice. Tomorrow, choose one simple act: walking, breathing, or sipping your morning drink. Bring your full attention to this ordinary moment. Notice how the quality of your awareness transforms it from mundane to sacred. Let this single act become your temple, your practice, your gateway to the divine that has always been present, patiently waiting for your recognition. Part 2. The Alchemy of Inner Stars. Chapter 11. The Garden Between Thoughts. In the bustling marketplace, a woman named Hazel tended her small herb stall, her mind racing with endless concerns about tomorrow's inventory, next week's profits, and the changing seasons. Her thoughts tangled like weeds, choking out the peace she longed to find. One dawn, as she arranged her fragrant herbs, an ancient gardener approached her stall. His eyes held the wisdom of countless seasons as he selected a sprig of lavender. "The finest blooms," he said, "grow in the spaces between our thoughts." The teaching flows through time, like water through fertile soil. Your mind is a garden, and each thought is a seed you plant. Most scatter their mental seeds carelessly, allowing worry to spread like thorny vines across their consciousness. Yet between each anxious thought lies a patch of untouched soil, sacred ground where the universe plants its miracles. When you learn to tend your mental garden with the same care you would give to earthly flowers, transformation begins. Just as a plant cannot grow without space between its roots, your spirit cannot flourish without moments of pure silence. These pauses are not empty. They are filled with infinite potential. Watch as a butterfly lands on a flower, perfectly still for a heartbeat. In that moment of stillness, nectar flows. So too does divine wisdom flow when you allow space between your thoughts. These gaps are doorways through which the universe enters your experience. In time, Hazel noticed how her herbs thrived best when given room to breathe between waterings. She began to apply this wisdom to her thoughts, creating conscious pauses throughout her day. Each worry that arose, she would greet with a moment of silence, a sacred pause where new possibilities could take root. A young apprentice visited her stall one afternoon, fretting about his future. Hazel shared with him the tale of the moonflower, which blooms only in darkness. "Some gifts," she explained, "reveal themselves only when we dare to rest in uncertainty. The truth unfolds like petals in morning light. Every pause you create becomes soil for serenity. Each moment of mindful silence nurtures the seeds of peace within your being. Your thoughts need not be weeded out entirely. They simply require the balance of conscious space between them." The practice: find a quiet corner of your day. Plant one thought in the soil of silence and resist the urge to crowd it with others. Watch how it grows when given room to breathe. Gently water this single thought with your attention and let it bloom into serenity. The garden of your mind awaits your tender care. Chapter 12. The river that tried to stop flowing. In the spaces between your thoughts lies a sacred garden waiting to be discovered. Within this ethereal realm, the seeds of transformation quietly take root, nourished by the silence you allow to bloom. A tale whispers from the annals of time, speaking of Calvin, a gifted artisan whose hands once shaped beauty from raw clay. His creations flowed naturally, each piece birthed from the wellspring of his spirit. Yet as recognition grew, fear crept in like frost upon tender leaves. He began to dam the flow of his inspiration, constructing walls of doubt and perfectionism, believing he could control creativity's wild waters. Day by day, the pressure built behind these mental barriers. His workshop, once alive with possibility, became a prison of unfinished works and abandoned dreams. The more Calvin tried to force his art into prescribed patterns, the more the life drained from his creations. Like a river denied its natural course, his creative force sought release through unexpected channels, manifesting as sleepless nights, unexplained anxieties, and a deep, unnamed longing. The universe speaks through water, for water holds the wisdom of yielding. It teaches that resistance creates the very pressure you seek to avoid. When you dam a river, you do not stop its flow. You merely force it to find another path, often with greater force than before. Just as water cannot be truly contained, your divine essence cannot be constrained by fear. The very act of resistance creates the turbulence you wish to avoid. Your thoughts, like water, seek their natural course. When allowed to flow freely, they find their own perfect rhythm, their own divine timing. The artisan's liberation came not through more control, but through surrender. One morning, gazing at a stream near his workshop, Calvin witnessed how water moved effortlessly around obstacles, never fighting, always flowing. In that moment, understanding dawned. Creativity, like water, requires not control, but free passage. As you sit in the garden between thoughts, observe how nature never strains. The flower does not force its petals open. The stream does not push against the rocks. All moves in divine accordance with the greater flow. Ancient practice. Find a quiet moment and settle into stillness. Imagine yourself as a riverbed, and your thoughts as water flowing freely. Visualize releasing all mental dams, the fears, judgments, and expectations that restrict your natural flow. Feel the relief as creative energy moves uninhibited through your being. Let each breath deepen this sensation of flow until you sense yourself merging with the infinite stream of divine potential. Chapter 13. The Crystal Inside the Mud. Long ago, in a valley where ancient wisdom whispered through the leaves, there lived a woman who spent her days cursing the mud that caked her garden. Each morning, as she toiled beneath the rising sun, her hands would sink into the thick earth, and her heart would grow heavy with resentment. Through the mist of time, this truth emerges. What appears as obstacle often cradles treasure within its depths. As you walk your path, remember that the universe speaks in paradox. hiding its most precious gifts beneath layers that test your perseverance. The mud that seems to hinder your progress contains minerals that nourish future harvests. The resistance that appears to block your way strengthens the muscles needed for your next leap forward. Every challenge that rises before you carries within it a crystal of transformation, waiting to be unearthed by your willing hands. Consider how Ivy discovered this truth. Each day she would dig through her garden, viewing the thick mud as her enemy. Her fingers would curl against the earth in frustration, her mind clouded by thoughts of what could grow if only the soil were different. Yet one morning, as sunlight pierced through gathering storm clouds, something caught her eye, a glimmer beneath the surface. As she carefully cleared away the layers of mud, a crystal emerged, its light pulsing with an inner radiance that seemed to speak of ages past. In that moment, Ivy understood. The very earth she had cursed had been protecting this treasure, keeping it safe until she was ready to receive its wisdom. The law of attraction operates not just through what you desire, but through what you resist. When you fight against your circumstances, you remain blind to the gifts they conceal. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, often wraps its most precious teachings in packages that challenge your perception. A second tale emerges from a distant mountain village, where a young potter discovered that his finest glazes came from the mud others avoided. By embracing what others rejected, he transformed limitation into artistry. His hands learned to read the earth's secrets, finding beauty in what was previously scorned. The crystal in the mud beckons you to look deeper. Each hardship that crosses your path carries within it a light waiting to be discovered. The very resistance you feel holds the key to your next awakening. This is the ancient wisdom. What appears to block your way often marks the entrance to your next evolution. Sacred practice. In the quiet of evening, sit with one challenge that currently faces you. Hold it gently in your awareness, as Ivy held the mud-covered crystal. Speak aloud one gift this difficulty has brought into your life. Perhaps patience, strength, or wisdom you would not have gained otherwise. Let your voice carry the power of recognition, transforming what was once cursed into blessing. Before we get into the next chapter, you can download a free ebook version of this audiobook using the link in the pinned comment below this video. Chapter 14. The Sky Beneath Your Feet. In the misty mountains of an ancient realm, a shepherd named Einar watched his flock graze beneath weighted skies. Each morning, he trudged the same paths, feeling the earth pull at his feet like chains of iron. His steps grew heavier with each passing season, until walking became a burden rather than a joy. You, like Einar, may feel the weight of earthly existence pressing upon your shoulders. Yet within this very pressure lies a sacred truth. The ground beneath your feet serves not as prison, but as dancing partner in the eternal waltz of being. The law of divine balance reveals that every downward force creates an equal upward response. When you press your foot into the earth presses back with identical strength, not to resist, but to support your next step. This is the hidden mystery of movement itself. You are held in perfect equilibrium between heaven and earth at all times. Consider the trees, which grow both upward and downward simultaneously. Their roots dive deep into darkness, while their branches reach toward light. They understand instinctively what humans often forget. that grounding and elevation are one movement, expressed in two directions. One day, as Einar rested beneath an ancient oak, he noticed how the tree's highest leaves danced in the wind while its roots remained steady in the soil. In that moment, he realized his own nature mirrored this truth. His body could be anchored while his spirit soared. His perceived heaviness was not imprisonment, but foundation. A wandering sage passed Einar's field that evening, carrying nothing but a walking stick adorned with bells. With each step, the bells chimed in harmony with his footfalls. "The earth rings like a bell," the sage said, "when you learn to walk with awareness." He demonstrated a simple step, heel to toe, conscious and slow, and the ground seemed to sing beneath his feet. You too hold this wisdom within your every movement. The pressure you feel is not meant to hold you down, but to remind you of your connection to both earth and sky. Each step can become a prayer, each moment of contact with the ground an opportunity for awakening. Ancient practice. Close your eyes and stand barefoot upon the earth. Feel gravity drawing you downward. Now, with each step you take, sense the equal rise of energy flowing upward through your body. Walk as though tracing sacred letters with your feet. Let each step become both grounding and ascending, until you feel the perfect balance of earth and sky dancing through your being. Chapter 15. The Unheard Song. In an ancient city, where the stones themselves held memories of forgotten songs, lived Viola, a musician whose melodies emerged from silence. Each morning she would sit at her weathered piano, fingers hovering above ivory keys, waiting not for inspiration, but for truth to flow through her. The world around her clamored for popular tunes, for familiar rhythms that would draw crowds and fill coffers. Yet something within her knew that authentic creation springs not from the desire to please, but from alignment with the universe's own song. You too carry within you a unique vibration, a signature frequency that aligns with the cosmic symphony. This sacred resonance exists not to gather acclaim or validation, but to attune your being to its highest expression. When you silence the need for external approval, you discover that creation itself is an act of divine remembrance. Each note you sound, each word you speak, each gesture you make carries the potential to harmonize with universal truth. The universe does not measure success by the number of listeners, but by the purity of transmission. When you allow your authentic expression to flow without constraint, you become a channel for celestial frequencies that transform both matter and consciousness. In time, Viola discovered that her seemingly private melodies began to affect the very fabric of reality around her. Plants in her garden grew more vibrantly, birds gathered to join her morning songs, and even the air itself seemed to shimmer with renewed vitality. She had unknowingly tapped into the law of vibrational harmony, the principle that authentic expression always finds its perfect resonance in the physical world. A wandering monk passed through the city one day, hearing notes drifting from her window. He sat in the square below, tears flowing freely down his weathered face. "You play the music of the spheres," he whispered, though Viola couldn't hear his words. She was lost in communion with something far beyond human appreciation. Through this eternal song, you learn that every soul carries a unique note in the universal chorus. Your task is not to perform for others, but to remain true to your inner symphony. When you honor this, You participate in the greatest orchestra ever assembled, the harmonious unfolding of creation itself. Practice. Hum softly tonight, not for others, but for your atoms. They remember truth through sound. Chapter 16. The Candle and the Wind. In the shadows of an ancient temple, a lone figure tended a sacred flame. Night after night, Jonas shielded his candle with such fierce devotion that his hands formed a fortress around its glow. His determination to protect what he held precious led him to create walls ever closer, ever tighter, until one evening the flame, starved of air, flickered and died in his grasp. The wisdom you seek lies not in preservation through constraint, but in allowing that which you cherish to move freely with life's breath. The universe whispers this truth through every dancing leaf, every rippling stream. That which remains rigid breaks, while that which bends with the wind endures. When you clutch too tightly to your dreams, your love, your purpose, you unknowingly suffocate their essence. The flame of your spirit requires space to dance, air to breathe, freedom to flicker and strengthen in its own rhythm. Your role is not to imprison the light, but to create the conditions where it may naturally flourish. In time, Jonas discovered that the same hands that once imprisoned could instead become an open chalice, cupping but never closing, guiding but never grasping. As he learned to trust the flame's dance with the wind, he witnessed how it grew stronger, brighter, more resilient with each breath of fresh air. This truth extends beyond mere flame and wind. It touches every aspect of existence. Your relationships thrive not through possession, but through freedom. Your dreams manifest not through rigid control, but through flexible faith. Your path unfolds not through forced direction, but through gentle guidance. Consider the second tale of the mountain temple, where an aged keeper shared wisdom with a young apprentice. "Watch," she said, holding a candle in the evening breeze. The flame bent and swayed, but never extinguished, finding strength in its very flexibility. "The light knows how to dance with the wind," she taught. "It is we who must learn to trust its wisdom." The light within you knows this dance as well. It yearns to move in harmony with life's currents, to strengthen through challenge rather than wither in protection. When you release your grip on what you fear to lose, you create space for it to grow beyond your imagining. Breathe gently on your own heart's flame. Let it sway, but never fear extinction. Chapter 17. The Library of Silence. A merchant traveled across desert sands, bearing precious scrolls to Pearl, who had dedicated her life to gathering ancient wisdom. Her chambers overflowed with manuscripts from every corner of the world, teachings of sages, mystics, and masters who had walked the path before. Yet something within her remained unfulfilled, a hollow space that no amount of reading could fill. The universe speaks through paradox, and your greatest teacher dwells in the spaces between what you think you know. As Pearl discovered, the accumulation of knowledge often becomes the very veil that obscures truth. Each scroll she collected became another layer between her consciousness and direct experience. One night, after years of study, Pearl dreamed of a temple with 1,000 doors. Behind each door lay another scroll, another teaching, another secret. But at the heart of this labyrinth stood a simple room, unmarked except for a single word: self. When she entered, she found no scrolls, no teachings, no wisdom etched in ancient text. Only emptiness, pure and complete. In this void, Pearl understood what countless chapters had failed to convey, that wisdom flows not from acquisition, but from allowing. The truth you seek has always resided within, waiting patiently beneath the endless layers of accumulated knowledge. Your consciousness itself is the sacred text you've been searching for. Consider how a flower needs no instruction to bloom, how a stream requires no guidance to find the sea. Their wisdom lives in their being, not in what they know about being. So too does your deepest knowing emerge not from gathering information, but from allowing your natural state to express itself. When Pearl awoke, she saw her collection of scrolls with new eyes. They were not the wisdom itself, but signposts pointing toward what she already knew. The true teaching lay not in memorizing ancient words, but in becoming so still that your own inner knowing could emerge unobstructed. The practice of wisdom is the practice of emptying, not filling. Each concept you release creates space for direct experience to arise. Your consciousness, unburdened by the weight of collecting, naturally aligns with universal truth. Practice. Sit before your closed eyes and ask, what truth am I avoiding through study? Wait for the answer made of stillness. Chapter 18. The Bridge Made of Breath. A shepherd named Samuel stood at the edge of a rushing river, his heart heavy with the weight of division. While his flock grazed peacefully nearby, he wrestled with an ancient question that had haunted seekers through ages: how to bridge the vast expanse between heaven and earth, between spirit and matter. The mysteries of existence seemed to mock his struggles. By day he tended his earthly duties, yet his spirit yearned for higher realms. By night he sought divine connection, only to be pulled back by mundane concerns. This split in his being created a wound that no wisdom could heal. In your own life, this division manifests as the struggle between material desires and spiritual aspirations. You may find yourself torn between worldly success and inner peace, between action and contemplation. Yet this perceived separation is the grandest illusion of all. As Samuel stood watching the river's eternal flow, his breath naturally began to match its rhythm. In that moment of unconscious harmony, a profound truth unveiled itself. His breath, moving in and out like the tide, was neither purely physical nor purely spiritual. It was both at once. Each inhalation drew in the invisible. Each exhalation expressed through the visible. The breath itself became his teacher, revealing that no bridge was needed because no true separation existed. Every breath demonstrated the seamless unity of spirit and matter, of heaven and earth. The very air moving through his body was the living proof that invisible and visible realms were one continuous reality. Just as the river before Samuel flowed unhindered between its banks, the breath flows naturally between realms. It requires no effort, no complex philosophy, no elaborate ritual. The simple act of conscious breathing dissolves the illusion of separation. In that moment, Samuel understood that he, like you, was already the bridge he sought to build. His body was not a prison separating him from spirit, but the very vessel through which spirit expresses itself in form. His breath was not merely air, but the constant communion between seen and unseen dimensions of being. Practice. Inhale through the crown of your head. Exhale into earth. Feel the bridge you already are. As you inhale, imagine a stream of light entering through the crown of your head, pure, lucid energy descending from the infinite expanse above. Let it pour gently through you, not as something foreign entering, but as remembrance flowing home. This is the breath of stars, the same current that once sparked your heartbeat into being. When you exhale, let that light travel down through your spine, through the soles of your feet, into the waiting embrace of earth. Feel her receive you, steady and generous, her gravity not as weight, but as welcome. Each breath becomes communion, heaven descending, earth ascending, until the boundary between the two dissolves. In this rhythm, realize what has always been true. You are the bridge, the living thread that joins the unseen and the tangible. Neither sky nor soil is complete without your presence. With every inhale and exhale, you remind existence of its wholeness, and yourself of your belonging to all realms at once. Chapter 19. The Echo That Learned to Sing. In a valley known for its perfect acoustics, there lived a young woman named Fay, who spent her days repeating others' words. When merchants passed through, she echoed their sales pitches. When travelers shared stories, she memorized their tales. When wise ones offered teachings, she borrowed their wisdom. Her voice became a vessel for 1,000 others, yet none of these words truly belonged to her. Each morning she stood before the valley walls, testing different voices like trying on borrowed clothes. "Be fearless," she would say in the tone of a warrior. "Find peace," she would whisper like a sage. "Seek wealth," she would declare like a merchant. Yet the echoes that returned felt hollow, missing the resonance of truth. The universe speaks through authentic expression alone. When you mirror others' truths without discovering your own, you create interference in the cosmic frequency meant to carry your unique vibration. Your voice, in its pure, unfiltered form, holds a magnetic power that arranges reality according to your soul's deepest knowing. One dawn, exhausted from wearing so many masks, Fay sat in silence by the valley wall. As the morning mist cleared, she noticed how the birds didn't imitate each other. Each sang its own distinctive song. The wind through different trees created unique whispers. Even the stones, in their silent presence, expressed their individual nature without effort. In that moment, something shifted within her. Instead of reaching for remembered phrases, she allowed her own voice to emerge, tentative at first, like a spring finding its way through rock. "I am the space between echoes," she spoke softly. These words belonged to no one else. They arose from her own being. The valley responded differently this time. Rather than bouncing back an empty replica, the rocks seemed to absorb her words, vibrating with recognition. Over time, she discovered that speaking her truth altered the very air around her. Opportunities aligned with her authentic expression. People were drawn to the genuine ring in her voice. The universe itself seemed to lean in and listen when she spoke from her core. This is the hidden law of resonance. What you express authentically becomes the frequency that reality matches. When you speak from borrowed wisdom, life responds with borrowed experiences. But when you voice your genuine truth, the universe conspires to manifest experiences that harmonize with your authentic vibration. Ancient practice. Speak one sentence today that belongs only to you. Then listen as your world harmonizes to it. Let your heart craft a sentence no one else could utter, a phrase born from your exact constellation of memory, breath, and becoming. And when you speak it, feel reality lean closer, rearranging its rhythm to meet your authentic note. The practice of articulation becomes creation. Your words are not mere sound, but coordinates in the map of your unfolding. When that singular truth escapes your lips, pause. Notice how light shifts, how air feels subtly tuned to your vibration. The world, ever responsive, begins to echo your sincerity. In that resonance you remember, expression is participation in the cosmic song. Your sentence is a doorway, your listening the step through. Chapter 20. The Light That Refused to Dazzle. In a temple adorned with golden statues and gleaming jewels, there lived a spiritual teacher named Marvin, who drew crowds with his elaborate demonstrations of enlightenment. He would meditate for days without food, levitate above cushions through clever illusion, and speak in riddles that left his followers in awe. His reputation grew like incense smoke, filling every corner of the land with tales of his supposed mastery. Yet beneath the performance, an emptiness echoed. Each miracle he staged left him feeling further from truth, not closer. The more his followers praised his wisdom, the more he sensed his own disconnection from genuine insight. The universe operates through natural law, not spectacular display. True power flows through the channels of humility, for only an empty vessel can be filled with divine light. When you release the need to prove your spirituality, you discover it was always present in life's quietest moments. One evening, as Marvin prepared for another grand demonstration, a small child wandered into his private chamber. Instead of being impressed by the spiritual props and costumes, she simply smiled and offered him a wildflower she had picked. In that simple gesture, Marvin witnessed more authentic spirituality than in all his years of performance. That night, he removed his elaborate robes and walked into the garden wearing simple clothes. For the first time, he felt the moonlight touch his skin without needing to announce its significance. He watched dewdrops form on leaves without turning them into metaphors. He breathed without counting or controlling his breath. In this gentle surrender, something extraordinary occurred, not as a display for others, but as an inner flowering of truth. His heart grew lighter, not from rising above others, but from settling deeply into his own humanity. He discovered that true spiritual power doesn't shine outward for applause, but inward for transformation. The next morning, instead of offering grand sermons, he served tea to visitors with quiet attention. Rather than performing miracles, he listened to others' stories with genuine care. His presence became a soft light that healed through humble authenticity rather than blinding through spiritual showmanship. Ancient practice. In your next success, bless quietly rather than announce loudly. Feel its brighter warmth. Part 3. The Return to Infinite Source. Chapter 21. The Seed That Remembered the Oak. In a small garden apartment, Betsy knelt each morning before her meditation cushion, feeling insignificant beneath the weight of life's vastness. Her shoulders curved inward as if apologizing for taking up space, her breath shallow as though rationing the air. She had spent years making herself smaller, believing humility meant diminishment. One dawn, while tending to her windowsill herbs, she noticed a tiny basil seed in her palm. As she studied it, ancient wisdom stirred within her consciousness. This seemingly insignificant speck contained entire futures, leaves reaching toward light, stems growing strong enough to weather storms, roots delving deep into Earth's mysteries. The seed held no doubt about its inherent magnitude. The universe speaks through the smallest messengers. Within every particle of creation lies the blueprint of its full expression. You arrived complete, carrying the cosmic architecture of your highest potential in your very essence. What appears as limitation is merely the temporary container from which your true nature will emerge. The seed knows nothing of smallness. It remembers only its destiny to grow. Your current circumstances, like the seed's shell, exist not as prison but as launching pad. The divine plan encoded in your being supersedes all acquired beliefs about your limitations. Betsy began placing seeds in dark soil, understanding now that temporary darkness serves emergence. With each seed planted, she recognized how her own periods of uncertainty had been germination rather than failure. The very things that seemed to confine her, her doubts, fears, perceived inadequacies, were actually the fertile ground from which her greatness would rise. Later that season, as green shoots broke through soil reaching toward sun, Betsy witnessed another truth. Growth requires no force, only alignment with innate wisdom. The plants didn't strain or struggle to become their full selves. They simply followed their internal instructions, unfolding according to divine timing. In her own meditation practice, Betsy stopped trying to make herself either smaller or bigger. Instead, she allowed her awareness to rest in the remembrance of her original nature, as vast as the universe that birthed her, as powerful as the force that turned seeds into forests. Her breath deepened, not from effort, but from recognition. Ancient practice. Picture your highest self already sprouted. Live one moment from that rooted grandeur. Chapter 22. The Traveler with No Luggage. In a bustling market square, a merchant named Eugene carried his worries like precious gems in a heavy pouch. Each slight, each failure, each moment of shame he collected and stored, believing their weight gave him substance. His shoulders bent beneath invisible burdens as he moved through life, watching others soar past while he remained earthbound by his treasured sorrows. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, spoke through the ordinary. One morning, as Eugene arranged his wares, a feather drifted onto his display of intricate brass scales. He reached to brush it away, but paused, transfixed by how it balanced perfectly on air. The feather held no memory of falling, no attachment to its former wing, yet danced more gracefully for its freedom. Within you dwells this same potential for lightness. Each grievance, each painful memory you grip tightly becomes an anchor, preventing your natural state of grace from expressing itself. The law of attraction responds not to your desires alone, but to the space you create for their fulfillment. When you release what weighs upon your spirit, you open channels for divine synchronicity to flow. Eugene watched as another feather joined the first, then another, until his heavy brass scales held nothing but air and light. In that moment, he understood. His collection of hurts served no purpose except to keep him bound to earth when his soul yearned for flight. A child approached his stall, eyes bright with wonder at the feathers dancing on his scales. "How do you make them float like that?" she asked. Eugene smiled, realizing he had done nothing. He had simply stopped interfering with their natural state of being. As you journey through life, notice what you carry. Feel the difference between what strengthens and what merely weighs. Your true power lies not in accumulation, but in liberation. Each burden released creates space for miracles to enter. Ancient practice. As the sun sets, find a quiet moment. Imagine standing at a road of pure light. Take one heavy memory from your heart, a regret, a hurt, an old sorrow. Place it gently at the roadside, blessing it for its lessons. Feel your steps grow lighter as you walk away, your spirit rising like a feather on the wind of new possibilities. Chapter 23. The Staircase in the Sky. Once there lived a woman named Mabel who spent her days gazing at distant mountaintops, convinced enlightenment awaited at their peaks. She filled her home with books about spiritual ascension, collected maps to sacred sites, and dreamed of that moment when she would finally reach the heights of consciousness. Each morning she would stand at her window, planning elaborate journeys to far-off monasteries and temples, certain that elevation meant evolution. Yet the universe speaks in whispers, not shouts. One ordinary afternoon, as Mabel climbed the stairs to her apartment, something extraordinary occurred. Lost in thought about her spiritual ambitions, she suddenly noticed her own awareness watching her climb. In that moment, time seemed to pause. Who was climbing? Who was watching? And where exactly was this mysterious up she had been seeking? The truth reveals itself in such moments of pure perception. Your consciousness is not a ladder to be climbed, but the very awareness in which all movement occurs. Each breath, each thought, each moment of presence is consciousness knowing itself more deeply. Heaven is not above you. It is the space in which you exist. In the market square, a wise woman once painted stars on the ground beneath her feet. When questioned about this strange act, she smiled and said, "Above and below are illusions of the mind. Where you stand is already sacred ground." This simple truth transformed the marketplace into a temple, not through any change in location, but through the shift in perception. Just as Mabel discovered on her staircase, you need not journey far to touch the divine. Your awareness, reading these words right now, is itself the consciousness you seek. Each moment of presence is a step that has already been taken. The separation between spiritual and mundane exists only in thought, not in reality. When Mabel finally understood this, her apartment became as holy as any mountain temple. Her daily activities transformed into acts of devotion, not because she changed what she did, but because she recognized the sacred nature of awareness itself. The staircase she climbed each day became her path to enlightenment, not because it led anywhere special, but because she learned to be fully present with each step. The ancient practice passed down through generations speaks to this truth. Close your eyes. Inhale assent. Exhale gratitude. You're already on the staircase. Chapter 24. The Twin Flames of Knowing and Not Knowing. In a sunlit courtyard, Chester, a devoted scholar, spent his days meticulously recording every instance of divine guidance in his journal. With each entry, he sought absolute proof of spiritual truth, believing certainty would finally silence his questioning mind. One morning, as he sat beneath an ancient olive tree, Chester watched two birds circle each other in an intricate aerial dance. One bird flew in perfect circles, while the other darted unpredictably through the sky. Their paths seemed chaotic yet harmonious, neither pattern more correct than the other. The universal law speaks through such moments of apparent contradiction. Your mind, like Chester's, may seek unwavering certainty while your soul thrives in the fertile soil of wonder. The deepest wisdom emerges not from eliminating doubt, but from allowing it to dance with conviction. When Chester finally ceased trying to separate his certainty from his questioning nature, something remarkable occurred. His doubt became a lamp illuminating unexamined assumptions, while his faith provided the courage to venture into uncertainty. Together, they formed a more complete understanding than either could achieve alone. The merchant Ahmad discovered this truth when he found two precious stones, one clear as morning light, the other dark as midnight. He thought he must choose between them until a wise woman showed him how, held together, they created patterns more beautiful than either stone alone. Just as Ahmad's stones gained power through their contrast, your own spiritual journey grows richer when you embrace both knowing and unknowing. The universe operates through complementary forces, light and shadow, expansion and contraction, certainty and mystery. When you resist this dance of opposites, you resist the very nature of creation. Practice. Hold one question without needing answer. Let curiosity become calm fire. Place your attention on something that puzzles you, but resist the urge to solve it. Simply allow the question to exist, neither pushing it away nor demanding resolution. Notice how this practice opens spaces within where deeper understanding can emerge naturally. Chapter 25. The Ocean. Beneath the Ocean. In a seaside village lived Ruth, a woman who feared the ocean's depths despite living beside it her entire life. Each morning she would walk along the shore, watching the tumultuous waves crash against rocks, mirroring the constant churning of her thoughts. One dawn, as storm clouds gathered, Ruth observed an old pearl diver preparing to enter the roiling sea. "Why dive in such conditions?" she asked. The diver smiled, her weathered face serene. "The surface tells nothing of what lies beneath. Under every storm exists perfect stillness. Here lies a truth as ancient as the tides themselves. Beneath every turbulent thought, every emotional storm, dwells an infinite ocean of pure consciousness. This awareness remains eternally undisturbed, like the depths that know no motion, while waves rage above." The pearl diver taught Ruth to descend through her fears one breath at a time. First, the splash of entry, the initial resistance of the mind, then the middle waters where currents pull, the layer where thoughts try to drag attention back to turmoil. Finally, the sacred depth where all is still, the natural state of being. You too hold this bottomless serenity within. When circumstances toss you about, remember, you are not the waves. but the deep water that holds them. Your true nature is this vast stillness, unchanging and aware. Every meditation, every moment of presence, is simply a return to what was never truly lost. A second pearl diver, younger and less experienced, once complained to Ruth about the rough seas preventing his work. Ruth shared what she had learned. The pearls don't exist in the turbulence. They rest in stillness, waiting for those willing to dive deep enough. This truth applies to your own inner search. The treasures you seek, peace, clarity, wisdom, do not float on life's surface. They dwell in the depths of pure awareness, accessible only when you dare to sink beneath the noise of mind. Ancient practice. When turmoil stirs, sink attention lower until motion ceases. Rest in deep quiet. Chapter 26. The Clockmaker's Dream. In a bustling city square, a clockmaker named Ernest devoted his life to measuring time with perfect precision. His shop windows displayed hundreds of timepieces, each marking seconds with unwavering accuracy. Yet, despite his mastery over mechanical time, peace eluded him. He lived enslaved to deadlines, appointments, and the relentless forward march of minutes. One morning, while adjusting the delicate gears of a grandfather clock, Ernest noticed a shaft of sunlight falling through his workshop window. As dust motes danced in the golden beam, time seemed to pause. In that singular moment, he glimpsed something vast and unchanging beneath the surface of passing time. The incessant ticking of his beloved clocks transformed from comfort to cage. Through this revelation, a deeper understanding emerged. Time was not a master to serve, but a vessel floating upon eternal waters. The true nature of existence lay in the timeless awareness watching time flow by. Each numbered hour became a gateway to the infinite. Ernest discovered that by resting his attention in the space between moments, mechanical time lost its grip. His customers began noticing a change. Though he worked with the same precision, there was now a quality of timeless presence about him. A traveling monk visited his shop, seeking repair for an ancient sundial. As Ernest examined it, the monk shared, "Time is like waves on an ocean. The waves rise and fall, but the ocean remains unchanged. Your true self is the ocean, not the waves." Those words crystallized Ernest's understanding. He had spent years trying to control time when he needed only to recognize the eternal awareness watching it pass. His workshop became a sanctuary where visitors sensed something beyond the measured moments, a doorway to the timeless. The mechanical precision of his craft remained, but now served as a reminder. Beneath all measurement flows the eternal present. The ticking of clocks became a meditation, each sound emerging from and dissolving back into silence. Practice. Pause midday, breathe out the tick's pressure, feel the timeless hum beneath it. At midday, when the clock's rhythm grows sharp and insistent, pause as though you are stepping outside of time itself. Let the weight of hours slip from your shoulders, the rush dissolve into air. Exhale deliberately, releasing not just breath but the invisible demand to keep pace with the ticking world. In that release, the space between moments widens. As you breathe out, feel what remains, a gentle hum beneath the machinery of minutes, steady and eternal. It is the pulse that existed before your first task, before the calendar, before names for days were born. Rest in that vibration as it reminds you that eternity has never left your body. It hums quietly under every inhale, waiting to be felt again. Let this stillness retune your senses. From here, when you re-enter movement, you do so as one who carries timelessness inside the ticking, a calm witness to the sacred music playing beneath the surface of each passing second. Chapter 27. The Phoenix Library. Long ago, in a small cottage among whispering pines, a woman named Loretta filled countless journals with her deepest thoughts and most cherished dreams. Each evening, she would pour her heart onto paper, believing that by recording every moment, she could somehow preserve the essence of her life. Yet with each passing year, the weight of unmanifested desires grew heavier, until her shelves groaned beneath volumes of unfulfilled longings. One winter evening, as shadows danced across her walls, Loretta felt suffocated by these paper memories. In a moment of profound desperation, she gathered her journals and carried them to the hearth. With trembling hands, she began feeding chapters to the flames. As the fire consumed her written words, something extraordinary occurred. Each burning page released not smoke, but light. The room filled with a golden radiance that seemed to whisper ancient truths. The universe speaks through letting go. Every thought you release transforms into pure potential, returning to the infinite field of creation. Your experiences are never truly lost. They dissolve back into the eternal now, purified of attachment and expectation. What you perceive as destruction often masks divine alchemy. When you cling to old stories, you bind your energy to what was rather than what could be. The fire of transformation doesn't eliminate, it elevates. It transmutes lead into gold, limitation into possibility, fear into freedom. In the glowing embers of her journals, Loretta discovered that true wisdom isn't captured in words, but lives in the spaces between them. Each crackling page taught her that sometimes we must release our grip on the tangible to grasp the intangible. The stories we tell ourselves become the boundaries of our existence until we dare to let them burn away. A second woman named Sophia once held onto a box of letters that anchored her to past pain. When she finally released them to the flame, each burning word became a star in her inner sky, illuminating new pathways of understanding. She learned that wisdom isn't accumulated, it's revealed through courageous surrender. The burning of these letters reflects your own journey. Every limiting belief you release creates space for truth to emerge. The fire of transformation awaits your willingness to let go of what you think you know, so that you may discover what your soul has always known. Sacred practice. In sacred solitude, write one limiting story that has held you bound. Light a single candle and hold your written words before its flame. As the paper catches fire, witness your story transforming into pure light. Feel the warmth of wisdom rising from what you release. Remember, the truth of who you are cannot be destroyed, only revealed through letting go. Chapter 28. The Invisible Choir. In a bustling marketplace, a merchant named Nolan stood behind his counter, lost in thoughts of spiritual enlightenment. He yearned for divine messages, expecting them to arrive in thunderous proclamations or whispered secrets from mystic sages. Day after day, he waited for extraordinary signs while life flowed around him in its ordinary rhythm. One morning, as sunlight painted golden stripes across his shop floor, an elderly woman approached his counter. Her voice, weathered by time, crackled like autumn leaves as she asked for a simple loaf of bread. In that moment, something shifted in Nolan's awareness. The cadence of her words carried a melody he had never noticed before, not in their meaning, but in their very vibration. Through this divine realization, you come to understand what Nolan discovered. Every voice that reaches your ears is the universe speaking in infinite dialects. The child's laughter, the stranger's greeting, the frustrated sigh of a passerby, each sound carries the signature of source energy expressing itself through human form. In the marketplace of life, divinity does not reserve itself for temples and meditation halls. It flows through every throat, resonates in every word, and sings through every conversation. The sacred chorus of existence requires no special arrangement. It simply asks for your recognition. When Nolan began to listen with new ears, his world transformed. The gruff complaint of a dissatisfied customer became a note in the universal symphony. The quiet thank you from a shy child revealed itself as a whisper from the infinite. Even the sharp words of anger showed themselves as passionate expressions of the divine seeking acknowledgement. The wisdom echoes through ages. What appears mundane conceals the miraculous. Your fellow beings serve as instruments in an eternal orchestra, each playing their unique part in the cosmic composition. When you attune yourself to this truth, every interaction becomes an opportunity for communion with the divine. Tonight, as you move through your world, remember that celestial frequencies pulse through earthly voices. The universe speaks not only through prophets and poets, but through the cashier, the bus driver, the child, the friend. Each voice you encounter carries a note in the endless song of creation. Practice tomorrow. Treat each voice you hear as choir practice with the infinite. Let every word that reaches you resonate as a sacred vibration, a reminder that the divine chorus never ceases. It simply awaits your recognition. Tomorrow, as dawn opens its quiet wings, step into the world as though entering a cathedral of sound. Every conversation, every hum of wind or distant laughter becomes rehearsal with the infinite. Listen not merely for meaning, but for tone, for the hidden harmonics that reveal creation's heartbeat threading through all voices. Let each word that touches your awareness vibrate in your chest like a tuning fork, awakening remembrance. Some notes may soothe, others may stir, yet all carry the same sacred instruction: to recognize unity disguised as dialogue. When you respond, let your voice be a conscious offering back to that divine choir, balancing melody with mindfulness. In this holy exchange, the ordinary becomes orchestral. The marketplace turns into a hymn, the whisper of strangers into prayer. And as you move through the day, realize the truth the infinite has been singing forever. You have never been separate from the music. You have always been part of its song. Chapter 29. The Infinite Cup. An old woman stood at her window each morning, watching sunrise paint the distant hills. In her hands, she cradled an earthen vessel passed down through generations, its surface etched with symbols of abundance. The vessel, though simple, held a wisdom that would transform her understanding of universal law. Through the whispers of time, the vessel speaks of a truth often overlooked in the pursuit of manifestation, that abundance flows not through grasping, but through giving, When you pour from a full heart, the universe responds with infinite replenishment. This principle echoes through the chambers of existence, revealing the sacred mathematics of spiritual prosperity. Your ability to attract blessings multiplies not through accumulation, but through circulation. Each act of genuine giving creates ripples in the cosmic ocean, returning to you amplified by divine law. The universe operates through expansion. Every particle of joy shared doubles its presence in the world. Consider the rain that falls from clouds. It does not diminish the sky's capacity to give. Instead, it returns through countless streams, rivers, and rising mist, completing an eternal cycle of abundance. Your consciousness follows this same pattern. When you release your gifts into the world without expectation of return, you align with the natural flow of universal energy. In a distant village, a baker named Thomas discovered this truth through his morning ritual. Each day, he would place a fresh loaf in the hands of a stranger, asking nothing in return. As weeks passed, his small bakery flourished beyond explanation. The more freely he gave, the more abundantly life responded, not through direct exchange, but through unexpected channels of blessing. This mirrors the deeper workings of attraction. Your thoughts and actions send vibrations into the infinite field of possibility. When these vibrations carry the frequency of generosity, they return bearing gifts from sources you could never have planned or predicted. The law works through multiplication rather than simple addition. The practice. As the sun rises tomorrow, choose one act of kindness to offer freely. It need not be grand. Perhaps a sincere compliment, a moment of undivided attention, or a small gesture of help. Give this gift without any thought of receiving. Then observe how your inner vessel fills with an inexplicable lightness. Notice how joy multiplies itself when freely shared. This is not mere coincidence. It is the law of attraction revealing its most profound secret, that in giving we become vessels of infinite abundance. Chapter 30. The Home You Never Left. Along the winding roads of an ancient mountain pass, a merchant named Leo carried his spiritual wares, prayer beads, sacred texts, and holy relics, searching for the doorway to enlightenment. His shoulders bent beneath the weight of accumulated wisdom, yet his heart remained restless, seeking something that eluded his grasp. The universal truth whispers quietly. Salvation is not a destination to reach, but a remembrance of what already exists within. You have been taught to seek what has never left you, to strive for what holds you, even now. The searching itself becomes the final veil between you and the recognition of your eternal nature. When Leo finally collapsed from exhaustion beside a clear mountain stream, his basket of spiritual treasures tumbled into the water. As he watched his collected wisdom float away, something extraordinary occurred. His emptiness filled with presence. In that moment of surrender, he recognized that what he sought had been seeking him, that what he chased had been carrying him. This truth extends to you now. You are not separate from the source of all being. Your breath, your awareness, your very existence is the divine expressing itself through form. The search ends not in finding, but in the dissolution of the seeker. Within the silence between your thoughts, in the space between your breaths, lies the doorway you have been seeking. It opens not through effort, but through recognition. Your consciousness is not a barrier to overcome, but the very bridge to what you seek. As Leo sat by the stream, laughing at the cosmic joke of seeking what he had never lost, he understood that enlightenment was not about becoming something new, but about recognizing what had always been. His journey transformed from a desperate search to a graceful dance with what is. Let this wisdom settle into your bones. You are not walking toward freedom. You are freedom walking. Every step you take occurs within the vastness you seek. Your very nature is the salvation you desire. The practice. Place your palm over your heart. Whisper, "I am already home," and feel universe nod back. As your palm rests against your heart, feel the pulse beneath, the ancient rhythm that hums through stars and cells alike. In that steady beat, the illusion of distance dissolves. All that felt far returns to center. The boundaries between seeker and sanctuary blur until only belonging remains. Whisper softly, "I am already home." Let those words ripple through the chambers of your being, touching every forgotten corridor of self with remembrance. This is not a mantra to become true. It is truth rediscovered. Home has never been a place you journey toward. It has always been the awareness you return to. As the stillness deepens, sense the universe's silent nod, a cosmic acknowledgement that your arrival was never in question. Every breath, every heartbeat, every luminous moment is confirmation. You are known, you are held, and you are home. If you enjoyed this audiobook, I created a free ebook version for you. You can download it using the link in the pinned comment. Conclusion. The path of the Forbidden Gnosticism is not a pilgrimage outward, but an unveiling inward. Through these chapters, you have traversed not distance, but dimensions of your own being. Each teaching has been a key unlocking chambers within your own heart, where truth has waited patiently for recognition. You have not acquired wisdom. You have remembered what was never lost. The parables spoke in the language of your soul's memory, each story a reflection of your own journey home. Every practice offered was not to perfect you, but to peel away the layers obscuring your perfect nature. The secret was never hidden by gods or guarded by angels. It resided gently beneath your own disbelief. Like a lotus waiting in mud, your divinity has always been present, requiring only the light of awareness to bloom. The universe did not withhold its mysteries. You simply needed to remember how to see with eyes of wonder. Now the soul, unshackled, recognizes creation as its reflection, life as its playground, and silence as its original language. In this recognition lies the final liberation, the understanding that you were never bound, only dreaming of boundaries. Your thoughts create worlds, your breath moves mountains, and your heart holds the compass of destiny. Speak less, radiate more. The truly awakened need no proclamations. Their presence is their message. Walk knowing the unseen bends kindly toward those who remember their divine authorship. Each step becomes a blessing, each glance a benediction, each moment an opportunity for grace to express through you. Learn it, but tell no one. The awakened need only live their truth. The light tells its story on its own.
If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.